Hi, welcome back. Around a month before the release of Arknights Endfield, I made a video titled Arknights Endfield is the most divisive gacha game so far. And not to toot my own horn, but I was right for many reasons that I expected and many others that I didn't. Endfield did turn out to be a gigantic game with the potential to completely change the market, with the second largest gacha release so far, gaining over 172 million USD in revenue in 2 weeks, only topped by Genshin that reached 250 million on the mobile market only in 1 month. Despite how huge this game is, it's also the most hated and doom-posted gacha game so far, again as I predicted, but either way, I believe that Arknights Endfield might genuinely be the closest a gacha game has ever been to being truly perfect, but it is also incredibly far away. It brings AAA quality, AAA visuals, insane optimization to allow it to be played on a wide variety of devices, but there's a huge list of proper, non-doom posted issues that need to be fixed for Arknights Endfield to truly realize its potential. So here's a comprehensive review after more than 100 hours on Arknights Endfield. Before we get started, you'll probably notice I'm going to compare many gacha games to Arknights Endfield, and let me tell you, this is not done in bad faith. The only reason I will compare any two games is to try and give my opinion as to how any of these games could be better. I urge you to put your opinion in the comments, but let's just not be tribalistic, right? We'll begin the review with the quality and polish, then the story, then the gameplay, including all of the factory and exploration, the combat, and the endgame content. And we'll end it with the most hotly debated topic, the gacha system and F2P accessibility. So as I said, Arknights Endfield is most definitely the best looking gacha game currently on the market. Everything from character models to lighting that does not include ray tracing to map and environmental details is absolutely perfect. And it's all super optimized. There are a couple issues some users are experiencing, like exceedingly high CPU usage and memory leaks, which the devs should be fixing soon. Voice acting in Arknights Endfield is also one of its strongest points, not only giving most if not all the voice actors incredible directions and utilizing their full talent, but also increasing immersion by hiring ethnic voice actors to voice ethnic characters like Rosie, Wolfguard, Tung, and even keeping the security robot Chinese in the English dub. But they also hired the best voice actor of all time to voice Yvonne, which just makes it all so much better. Again, I don't think calling Endfield the most beautiful and highest quality gacha game on the market right now is a bad take, and if Genshin, HSR, and Wuthering Waves could pull in players with their high quality, Endfield definitely can too, and it already proved it by making over $172 million in 2 weeks. If there is one thing they need to add, it's real ray tracing, which would be really fun for those with the high-end graphics cards. So now, despite me being called the biggest hyperglazer for both Arknights games, it is time to stop slobbering the game and actually do some proper criticism. The story in Endfield so far is simultaneously the most disappointing 1.0 experience, yet also the best 1.0 experience, yet also the story that I couldn't be more hyped for the future of. The thing about Endfield's current lineup of story missions and quests is that they're insanely fun to do, but the story that they provide is pretty subpar, not only to Arknights standards, but also to what's been written before in Endfield itself. The presentation is currently incredible, with super expressive characters and a very animated and interactive world. Character interactions are also very well done, specifically with characters like Yvonne and Tung, who bring a lot of life to the world around them. Even with this subpar story quality that we have right now, actually playing the quests for Arknights Endfield is by far my favorite experience out of all gacha game 1.0s. And here's a worst to best list for those who are curious. The real issue that I have with the story is how un-Arknightsy it is, and while I don't want to sound like a certain elitist, it's definitely not what Arknights players are used to, definitely not up to the same quality, and it seems very intentional rather than a mistake. The current main quests of Valley 4 and Wuling are very shallow and very black and white. We are Endfield Industries trying to build civilization on a very hostile planet, and our means of survival and thrival should not be so simple as don't ask questions and let's just keep going, right? Now, Arknights itself already tackles a lot of the morals of Originium, and I don't want Endfield to just be Arknights 2. Now, that doesn't sound so bad, actually, it kinda sounds amazing, but my point is that what I'm looking for from Endfield is not the same as what I want from Arknights. The story shouldn't tackle the same thing, yet it also shouldn't completely ignore the story and lore of its predecessor. It definitely currently hasn't been doing that for 99% of subjects, as it definitely dives into a lot of what makes Arknights Arknights, and thus does make Endfield an Arknights game, but it's definitely missing a crucial factor to the point where a lot of players are calling Endfield inauthentic to Arknights, and while again I don't want to sound like a certain elitist, it certainly is something to think about. Speaking of the Endmen, I hate the fact that they are another amnesia trope silent protagonist. It's by far the worst thing about Enfield's current story product. So how do you make Enfield's main story quests better? Number 1, make the Endmen a proper character with their own personality, rather than a vessel for the player, because everyone's genuinely fed way the fuck up with amnesia tropes. And 2, well, have better writing, because the current writing is just kinda mid. Now, Enfield's character stories are definitely a much better experience story and lore-wise than the MSQs, but I only really like 2 out of the 4 current ones we have, Yvonne's and Lavatane's, and coincidentally, both Gilberta's and Wolfguard's are worse because of the same exact reason. They were both rewritten and the best parts of them were completely removed. I don't want to go too in depth, but many voiced Endman lines were removed from Wolfguard's, as well as a lot of nuance and depth, and Gilberta's was rewritten to have much lower stakes. There was also only like 3 voiced Endman lines in it, which kinda sucked. Now, Yvonne's didn't have many Endman lines either, but it was a much better experience, not only because Yvonne is my goat and voiced by my goat, but also because it told us about Yvonne herself in a much better way than Gilberta and Wolfguard. It tied up many loose ends from the Valley 4 story, gave Yvonne closure and a goal, and also taught us about her past, her present, and her personality. It was great, but many players still had many criticisms for it, which I kinda don't care for relaying right now. Lavatane's, however, is ubiquitously loved by the community, and coincidentally it's also the story they've made the most recently, which gives me a lot of hope for Enfield's future story quests. For one, the administrator has many properly voiced lines rather than just choices, and while it kept switching between voiced lines and dialogue options, which really pissed me off, the fact that the admin properly spoke is great. It also told us about Surtur's Reconvener incredibly efficiently, connecting with Arknights properly without demanding the player have any Arknights knowledge. Someone with 0 Arknights knowledge will probably have some questions, but Lavatane's quest definitely answers enough of them. I've also seen a lot of players complain about Yvonne's, Gilberta's, and Lavatane's quests feeling like dates, but I don't get that vibe whatsoever. It's a character quest, you're gonna hang out with the character for most of the quest. Even Gilberta's quest's final scene definitely didn't feel like a date at all. What did feel like a date is the whole ordeal with Zhuang Fanyi, which really kinda just sucked. So, how do you make better character quests in Enfield? Connect the Reconveners to their original characters properly, like how Lavatane's quest did, rather than the few lines brought by an NPC story that Gilberta's quest gave us, and treat non-Reconvener character quests like how Yvonne's was treated, and again, just better, deeper, and more thoughtful writing, and make the admin their own character. Really, you have people everywhere telling you they're fed up with silent amnesia trope protagonists, so just give us a proper main character. Now, the game is just coming out, which definitely means it's not going to have a fully fleshed out story, but that doesn't mean I can't criticize when I don't think a product is up to par. When you stay silent and don't criticize, you end up with a game like Honkai Star Rail. Now let's continue. So, to start off with the gameplay, let's talk about the factory first. To say I absolutely love it is a complete understatement, but as the theme of this video suggests, it's not perfect. You can absolutely sink hours upon hours into it and it's all super fun. It ties into the exploration perfectly, and for once in an open world or semi-open world gacha game, exploring isn't just for early game stamina and gacha currency, because half of the AIC gameplay is the exploration. Setting up relay towers, finding mining rigs, setting up zip lines, depot nodes, unlocking stock redistribution terminals, finding the wacky waving inflatable arms flailing tubemen, unlocking gear sets, and so much more. It is incredible how fleshed out the factory system and exploration are, and yet I have just one suggestion to make it much more fun. First things first, it needs a lot of quality of life, which they already addressed, and that quality of life seems to be coming quite soon. But my biggest concern with the factory is how it sometimes feels like the game is actively playing against you by giving you so many bottlenecks, specifically with the ores of course. There's not enough ores on the map to truly and fully max out your factory, and even though amethyst is only an early game mineral, I want more of it so we can build more stuff. If this is a factory game, let it feel like a factory game where it has no bottlenecks on creativity. We need more Originium and Amethyst ores in Valley 4, and in Wuling I just hope they give us much more than what they probably already will give us when the map's fully released. Now, I do obviously think we need to do a lot of resource management because this is a factory game, but giving us a couple hundred more ores wouldn't give anybody an unfair advantage or rig the gacha system in any way, so Hypergriff needs to allow us to have a lot more ores to work with. And when it comes to the combat, well, I absolutely love the mechanics of it as well. I know a lot of people call it slow and clunky, but it's genuinely as slow and clunky as you are bad at the game. It's one of my favorite combat systems in a very long time, and it's insanely satisfying to set up a bunch of combo skills in a row. The criticism I have for it isn't about the mechanics at all. Instead, my issue with it right now is that team building is very rigid. No matter how small it may seem to current F2P players, it just so happens that the current rigid teams are F2P friendly because there are only like 3 proper 6-star DPS units, with all of their teammates being 4 and 5-star units. And that's great that lower rarities are getting used, but what happens if Haimao gets a call from Dawei to give him advice or something like that and Endfield turns into a game like Honkai Star Rail? So while Endfield's current character kit design vision, which is to give each character their own job, whether 4, 5, or 6-star, is incredible, if they don't do it right, they could end up making a game where team building is more rigid than me when your mama shows up. We need more fluid team building that still capitalizes upon characters' jobs, and one of the best examples in the game right now is Gilberta, doing incredible stuff to many different teams, including Shatter, Lavataine, Yvonne, and Last Rite, and any future DPS that wants art susceptibility. However, she's also balanced by not outright power creeping Ardelia, because she doesn't give physical susceptibility, and doesn't work with straight up physical teams without an arts reaction like Ardelia does. She currently isn't a be-all end-all, but the keyword is currently. I may be worrying too much, but Hypergraph falling into the Hoyo trap is insanely worrying to me, so TLDR, kit design right now makes team building very rigid, so make characters do jobs for more than just one meta team, maybe 2, possibly 3 for more powerful units, give characters the ability to be flexible rather than do one job, keep team building fluid, and make the player feel in control of their operators. Now, the current rigidness is most definitely partly a symptom of not having enough teams and DPS units, but I'm not gonna sit by idly and wait for it to get worse. Again, I'm gonna criticize it so it can get better. Now, the endgame content might be the weakest point about Enfield's combat right now, because Edge Space Salvage doesn't qualify, not only because it's just not endgame, but also because it's boring. Umbral Monument is fun until you finish the stages, at which point it's also boring. I'll address the amount of currency in Umbral Monument a little later during the F2P accessibility section. I think Umbral Monument's current mechanics are pretty okay for a 1.0 launch quote-unquote endgame content, but what I really want to talk about is future endgame content. For a while, I thought Umbral Monument was another Spiral Abyss with a 3-minute timer to get max rewards, but turns out it's not that at all, and the 10-minute timer is plenty of time for all of us, and the rewards are simply based on you beating the content instead of chasing time, which is incredible. So I want them to continue like this instead of, for like the billionth time, falling into the Hoyo trap and making Hoyo/Wuwa endgame content like the Spiral Abyss, MOC, or TOA, which are all suffering from incredibly similar issues. I don't want timed rotation-based endgame content, which has proven time and time again to be a terrible formula not only for quality of gameplay, but also for F2P accessibility. I want non-timed iteration-based endgame content like Arknights, where they release a new iteration for one of their endgame modes every once in a while, which lasts for anything from a couple weeks to a few months. And since Arknights has so many modes, there's always something to do and grind. The only big gacha game right now with decent endgame content, aside from Arknights, is Zenless Zone Zero, but even then, it's still not optimal in my opinion, because it's rotation-based, and they still fell into many traps in the past and probably will again in the future, so game modes like Contingency Contract, and especially Reclamation Algorithm and Integrated Strategies, if we get these in Arknights Endfield, I will glaze this game till the end of time, but maybe the true Arknights Endfield endgame content was the Arknights PC client. So, give us Arknights endgame content in the Arknights game, please. And finally, when it comes to the F2P accessibility, there's a lot to say. Now, character building and account maintenance is currently pretty F2P accessible. The gear/artifact system is 90% RNG free, because you can just set up your factory and you have enough resources to build your entire roster 90% of the way after, and then you can artifice for your favorite characters only, because artificing is currently completely optional. It is heavily RNG to max out a single gear piece, but completely unartificed gear pieces are everything you currently need to beat the entire game, including Agony Mode Umbral Monument. It's thousands of times better than the alternative that I will forever loathe, like the Echoes, Relics, Artifacts, and Discs. The weapon essences are a great system as well, because it replaces true RNG gear systems like Artifacts and Echoes as the daily farm you spend your sanity on, while also having a proper finish line rather than the arbitrary bullshit of other gear systems. And again, it's also currently optional. My best weapon essence right now is a completely unlevel 2 out of 3 piece, and again, I still trimmed agony mode with this last right team. But one worry I have for the future when we're going to need more powerful essences is sanity regenerates way too slowly, so give us much faster sanity regeneration. We need enough to at least do 3 or 4 runs of essences a day without having to use boosters. Speaking of which, a lot of players complain about the boosters resetting, but the boosters that reset are from your dailies and weeklies, so they're like the coffee from ZZZ, so I don't mind those resetting. It's basically just an extra 40 every day, and since we're on the topic of character building, Djung is a pretty good system. I don't mind it, but I wish there was a collect all and refresh all button. Now finally, when it comes to all of the gacha system, gacha resources and monetization, then first off, I've already proven like 3 times that the gacha system is objectively better than Wuthering Waves and Genshin because I wrote a piece of code that simulated 100,000 pulls and Endfield got a couple hundred more limited 6 stars than both games. The 120 guarantee not carrying over is really not that bad. The only thing that would make Enfield's gacha system bad is the amount of gacha currency, and the concern of having little currency in the early game got addressed, so let's see how they fix it. Meanwhile, a lot of Doom posters still call the gacha currency in the rest of the game spread thin, but that's just not true. It is as spread thin or thick as Genshin and Wuthering Waves. The real issue, which we won't know nothing about until later, will be how much currency we get in later versions, and I'll be the first to say it needs to at the very least be 100 pulls, and preferably 120. The only scenario where 120 would be absolutely needed and would actually be a lowball is if they keep the 3 6 stars per patch schedule. If they do that past 1.1, hell even 1.0, you're gonna see me rioting. They need to give us frequent lower rarity units, and what I'm guessing they'll do is give us a group of 4 stars like the YOP Z7 group every X.0 patch. The monetization for this game is pretty great so far. Obviously there was a massive PayPal fumble which was insane for the launch of a gacha game, but at least that ended with the bare minimum of giving everyone a refund. The Battle Pass is one of the best Battle Passes out of any gacha game, only topped by Limbus companies, and Endfield is also the most low spender and most well-friendly big gacha game so far. Not only does it have the easiest to swallow worst case scenario funds whether you're only getting 1 copy or maxing out an operator, but you also don't have to pay for weapons, maybe. The weapon system is probably where I have the biggest issues with Arknights Endfield. Now it is objectively the best out of the big gacha games, what's new, right? But it also simultaneously feels insanely stingy. The reason for that is Hypergriff are trying to monetize weapons as if they have the same value as characters, but the issue is that they just don't. People see weapons as tools, not characters. They need to have at most half the value of a character, preferably a quarter. So they're testing the waters to see how much we can take by giving us only 100 tickets a week, and 20 in the credit shop, and not giving us any at all for clearing Humble Monuments. All of these make it feel incredibly stingy, and like the devs are pinching pennies at this point. Now, I get that this is a gacha game and they don't want you to get the signature 6-star weapon for every single operator you get, but the problem is that even if you go to 120, the worst case scenario of only getting the guarantees, you only get to 8,160 arsenal tickets, which is not even enough to guarantee a weapon, which is shit. Especially because we aren't gonna get any more starter tickets or any more front-loaded sources of standard tickets. And if you get your 6-star early, then maybe that's when you should have to consider getting the free half signature from the Battle Pass. Although, unfortunately, I believe Hypergriff will never change a gacha system after release, so we're not gonna get any more arsenal tickets in the gacha unless they pull the biggest devs listen moment ever. But for now, we need the weeklies and the credit shop to not spit in our face by giving us less than dirt in terms of value. Also, the Geometry exchange, which for some reason I can genuinely never find anywhere, needs to give us way more than 25 arsenal tickets per Geometry. You really need 80 of them for 1 arsenal exchange. Again, they're trying to give weapons the same value as characters, and to that I say hell no. Now, after all of these issues I just listed, why the hell should anybody keep playing Arknights Endfield? Well, not only are the characters super lovable, the combat mechanics super fun, the factory experience super incredible, and the exploration the actual best in the gacha space, and the gear and SS system the actual best of all time and doesn't make you want to kill yourself, but also for the future and potential of this game. Why did anybody keep playing Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail or Only Zone Zero? Hell, Wuthering Waves, which had the worst launch out of all the big gacha games so far. It's the same thing. It's love for the potential that the game has. It's why I hard quit Genshin and HSR. They never lived up to the potential that I saw in them. It's why I probably won't ever play Zenless Zone Zero again, and even Wuthering Waves is on the edge if the endgame content keeps progressing like this too. But Arknights Endfield. All I want out of this game is to live up to the potential, and hopefully this video explained my view of it. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and join the Express Train Discord server for our fun and lovely community to hang out with. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.